What's a story from your life that started off sad but had a surprisingly happy ending? The story of Mr. Hopeful and Ms. Lonely Heart. I was a bartender at a local place that was somewhat close to a university, but far enough away that it was a hidden gem. We used to get first dates all the time, most of them were Tinder-esque. I remember one time specifically, this guy comes in and sits down at a table alone, and kept checking his watch. A watch? I wander over, greet him, and ask what he'd like to start off with to drink. I dunno, I'm meeting someone. Is it rude to have a drink already before they get here? I smiled, asked if he was waiting for a date. He said yes, and I suggested a beer to sip on instead of a mixed drink. I told him it might calm his nerves a bit, but won't get him inebriated too quickly so he could enjoy his date. He agreed, apologized profusely for bothering me, which he wasn't at all, and continued to wait. After about 20 minutes of him waiting, and him checking his watch every 5, I wandered over again and asked if he'd like to look at a food menu, perhaps munch on something while he waited. He declined, and glanced at his watch again. I made a comment about his watch and how I appreciated his use of analog technology, and he laughed nervously and said he didn't want to pull out or use his phone during his date, because he didn't want to seem disingenuous. It was so cute. Another 30 minutes passed, and my high-strung hopeful was still alone. I asked if he changed his mind about some food, and he merely shook his head, defeated. I'll just finish my beer and go. I'm sorry I wasted one of your tables. On his last swig of beer, a cute-looking girl walked in, eyeing the room, obviously looking for someone. Chelsea. Over here. He started to stand, grin from ear to ear. The entrance was near my drink well, which I had just happened to be standing in. This night was particularly quiet, and the acoustics allowed me to hear chitter-chatter in the entryway. I looked over to the girl after seeing my hopeful's eyes light up, and she had a disgusted look of, damn it, in her face. She rolled her eyes and made contact with mine, sighed, and said, "Are you kidding me with this guy?" She then screwed on her fake smile, and immediately sat down, avoiding a half-hug attempt by my hopeful. The entire date felt forced. Every time I went to check on them, she was ordering another drink, and he was doing his best to try and pull conversation from this girl, who had her face in her phone the entire time. About an hour later, I watched the girl get up with her purse, announced that she had to use the restroom, and wandered away towards the restrooms. I immediately went over to my hopeful to ask how his date was going. "I don't think she likes me," he trailed off. I gave him a pat on the shoulder, and said it looked to me like he was doing everything right. He smiled, thanked me, and I went back to my bar. The girl never came back. He footed her tab. $90 worth of drinks, his 2 beers were $8. But that's not the end of the story. He continued to come back as a regular, and I became his wing woman. Mr. Hopeful was handsome, and if I had not been in a relationship at the time, I would have totally given him my number. He developed a crush on me, and was genuinely the sweetest guy who tried to pursue me, but I obviously was not the girl he was supposed to be with. Ms. Lonely Heart had been a regular customer of mine long before Mr. Hopeful came by. I'm not sure what she did for a living, but she would always visit me immediately after getting off work, which she would regularly describe as terribly stressful and full of office politics and drama. She quickly became one of my favorite regulars, not only because she tipped extremely well, leaving $50 no matter what her tab was, but because she was genuinely a lovely girl, had the best stories, always provided a witty quip. She was a breath of fresh air, and I always enjoyed her sitting at my bar. With her becoming more comfortable with me as we became bar friends, she began to confide in me all the terrible experiences she'd had with trying to date. She once said to me, "I'd say I have bad luck, but I think I'm just picky. Why do I have to settle?" She didn't have to. She didn't. I didn't ever see her on a date, and she would come to a bar food for dinner, because she liked the company. I might be nice, but I'm totally not worth a plate of bar food for dinner 5 days a week. Admittedly, though, our food was pretty tasty. She would come in around 4 p.m., and be gone by 6:30. Mr. Hopeful would come in around 8 p.m., they were just missing each other. On Friday nights, we would have karaoke that started at 9 p.m. Ms. Lonely Heart would be caught singing along to songs I had playing on the stereo, and I would try to get her to stay and sing almost every week. Slowly, she began to stay later on Fridays. One fateful Friday, Ms. Lonely Heart had babied her strawberry stoli and soda until 8. Mr. Hopeful was due to arrive soon. I bought her a drink, and offered her an Uber in case she didn't want to walk. How could she say no? She lived up the street, and would regularly walk home if she had more than 3 drinks. Ms. Lonely Heart's regular seat was the first seat next to my drink well. She figured that's where I spent most of my time making drinks, that was the perfect spot for her to sit and actually have longer conversations with me before I had to walk away. Mr. Hopeful sat in the middle of the bar, in front of the television. Turns out, he never pulled out his phone. It wasn't just to seem nice to his date, he just really enjoyed being in the moment. He was a people watcher. He'd really only talked to me and a couple of the other bartenders and waitresses, but he loved sharing his observations about the people around him. Perfect. I waited for him to mention the cute girl at the bar humming to all the songs, and I gave him the pep talk of his life. She had my recommendation, and I was not about to steer Mr. Hopeful wrong. He casually, or as casually as someone who was super nervous could act casual, walked over to the well, and asked if I could give him some olives from my tray in the well. Sure. Give me a minute. I pretended to wash some glass. I ended up making a couple of drinks for some of my other tabs, and lo and behold, I looked down to the end of my bar, and Mr. Hopeful had taken the seat next to Ms. Lonely Heart. I didn't see his face, but she had a smile the size of Texas and was blushing. I could only imagine the grin on his face when she laughed and touched his shoulder. They were flirting. I left them alone, and made most of my drinks as quickly as possible so I wasn't interrupting the magic. My night was spent listening to laughter and happiness in between horrible singing and drunken song chants. Miss Lonely Heart left first. She took me up on my Uber, but Mr. Hopeful now had her phone number. Fast forward some cute encounters on karaoke nights to their announcement that they were officially dating. She was offered a promotion in another state, and he totally went with her. I haven't seen or heard from either of them since their last day and goodbye from the bar with promises to visit in a few months. My bar closed down before I got to see them again, and had a change of ownership. I hope they're still creating magic.